Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, you're all very welcome here this evening to the Moore Auditorium in UCD O'Brien Centre for Science. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here for this very important and interesting event. It's an enormous pleasure to give a special and warm welcome to Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, India's Minister for External Affairs. We are deeply honoured, Minister, to host you here at University College Dublin during this very significant ministerial visit to Ireland. I also want to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Ambassador Mishra, the Ambassador of India to Ireland, and Ambassador Kelly, the Ambassador of Ireland to India. So we are deeply fortunate to be in the presence of such distinguished guests. UCD, as you know, has a very, very strong relationship with India, built on decades of academic and cultural collaboration. Last year we celebrated 10 years of our UCD South Asia Global Centre in New Delhi, a milestone in our commitment to deepening educational and research ties with India. We are proud to be a global university, as you all know, in UCD, home to students from 151 nationalities, with 32% of our student population coming from outside Ireland. Indian students form the largest international student cohort at UCD, with over 1,700 students currently studying across a diverse range of disciplines. A number of you here this evening, and you're most welcome, and many of you studying in science, so it's perhaps very appropriate to have this engagement here in the Science Building. Our engagements with Indian institutions continue to strengthen, and we want to build on these in research, in innovation and in education. Minister, your visit to UCD comes at a pivotal time as India plays an increasingly influential role on the global stage, a global stage that is, of course, an increasingly interesting place. So we are very eager to hear your thoughts today on India's view of the world. Really, really important topic for us all. And we look forward to an engaging discussion on India's role in global governance, economic development and international collaboration. Your leadership in shaping India's foreign policy has been instrumental in forging global partnerships, and we are greatly privileged to have the opportunity to learn from you this evening. So after the Minister's address, there will be the opportunity for questions and answers, so you can be plotting your questions while you hear the Minister speak. And then for those of us who are able to stay, we will have a short reception afterwards. So without any further ado, I will welcome Minister Jaishankar, our very distinguished guest, to the stage.
This premier institution of learning, one which has such a visible association with India, and where actually, you've really had a very distinguished record of alumni, many leaders of Ireland, and one of our own presidents of India. So once again, thank you for hosting me, and thank you all for joining me this evening. Now, as I was preparing for this visit, it struck me how complex our history, meaning that between India and Ireland, actually is. On the one hand, Ireland was very much a part of the British colonial rule of India. The Irish were present in the administration, military, medical, railways, engineering, education. Irish missionaries and, as I said, educationists spread across the length and breadth of India. And I myself did my early education in a school called St. Patrick's School. It doesn't come more Irish than that, in Chennai. But having said that, Ireland's struggle for freedom was also an inspiration, a very powerful inspiration for India and for our national movement. There was a very strong sense of parallel endeavors, and it's interesting if any of you bother to look at the Wikipedia on India-Ireland relations. One of the first things which pop up there is actually a lecture by Yeoman de Valera on India and Ireland. And what's really interesting is he's speaking before a group called Friends of Freedom for India, in New York, and that he was talking about India in New York, and I think this is as early as 1920. I think that is a statement in itself. Now, there were a number of people of Irish origin who were associated with our fight for freedom. I think Annie Besant stands out, as does Sister Nivedita, perhaps not so well known here, but certainly in India. And it is a fact that many of the leading figures of that period in India were actually in touch with their Irish counterparts. The most prominent, of course, relationship was that between our national poet, Rabindranath Tagore, and the introduction to his Nobel Prize winning work, Gitanjali, was actually written by W.B. Yeats. Now, this is not just a historical or even a sentimental point that I'm making. From our perspective, one of the outcomes of having similar experiences is a degree of empathy on contemporary issues. When we speak today in India about the concerns of the global south, our expectation is that Ireland, more than many others in this part of the world, will display an understanding and support. A second commonality between us is, of course, the global diaspora. Not all of this was entirely voluntary for Indians in its early years, but that is a foundation that has been built upon today to explore the opportunities of a global workplace. A third aspect is actually the internationalism that is inbuilt into our outlook. In India, we speak of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is, the world is a family, which is very much a sort of a tradition. And in many ways, it encapsulates the fundamental openness of our society. And certainly the experience of our independence struggle has revived a strong solidarity with others in a similar predicament. And this internationalism, in fact, leads us to the next step, which is multilateralism, willingness to work with other nations in a very structured format, especially in the United Nations. And I do believe that our struggle for freedom, the fact that we both were international at that time in terms of looking for allies and supporters and well-wishers, that even today I think continues to shape our view of the world and our belief that countries should work with each other to deal with the important issues of our times. So I can assert it with some confidence that we are two countries who do believe in the need for a world order, in respect for international law, and we do value international regimes and cooperation. For that very reason, it's essential that such regimes are contemporary, they are fair, they are non-discriminatory, and today, I think the nature of the international system itself is an important subject of conversation between countries like India and Ireland. Now, a few words before I turn my attention, a few words about our bilateral ties before I turn my attention to global matters. Economically today, we have a very robust level of trade. It's currently estimated at about 16 billion euros. I suspect it's a little larger. And what's interesting with Ireland is that actually our trade in services exceeds our trade in goods by a large margin. And that's really, for us, quite unusual. And it obviously derives from the nature of the Irish economy. Now, leading companies of both nations in various domains have established a presence in each other's economies. Many of our IT majors are here. I think most of you know that. Some of our pharma companies are here. And I would say many of the household Irish names in terms of business have a long established presence in India as well. Tourism between us is growing. Our last figures for Irish tourists was about 44,000. And we certainly hope that a more friendly visa policy, Ambassador, please note, by Ireland could see an increased flow of Indian tourists, as indeed they go to many other international destinations. Education, as is evident, is I think been a really promising area of exchanges. I came into Ireland with the belief that we had about 10,000 students here. I was told the numbers today closer to 13,000. And I do want to say this has been the subject of some initial conversations even today. Today again, the numbers, the latest numbers I have is about 100,000. I think it's making really a very serious contribution to Ireland's national development. Now, we do appreciate very much steps which successive Irish governments have taken to improve the ease of working and of living here. From a diplomatic standpoint, I can confirm that our various mechanisms are active, key agreements are in place, and overall, I think there's good reason for us to be, feel good about the relationship, but yet be alert to the possibilities of how much more there is that we can do together. Now, there are two thoughts which I think it's important for people in Ireland to understand about India, particularly as we contemplate our future ties. One, that today India is on a trajectory where it has, I would say, decades of about 7% plus minus growth ahead of it. And that will create a new volume of demands, a different pattern of consumption, obviously a higher quality of life, of economic capabilities. And it's visible in India in very different ways. I mean, whether it's the number of airports we're building on average about 7 airports a year, the growth in our highways, we are laying about 28 to 30 kilometers of highway a day. The fact, even in education, that there have been almost 7,000 new colleges which have come up in India in the last decade. So there is a lot that is happening in India. There is an India that is changing, which will be a very bigger presence in the global economy. And certainly for a country like Ireland, that is something which is worth noting. The second aspect of it is, of course, Ireland as a member of the European Union. And here we have been negotiating, and I'm afraid we've been negotiating quite long, almost 23 years now, for a free trade agreement. We just had a visit of the EU president with 21 commissioners to India, and we are perhaps a little bit more hopeful now that this exercise would be brought to an end, ideally by the conclusion of this year. Now, I do want to share with you all our view that we find today increasing convergences with Europe. As India becomes a bigger economy, we are the 5th currently, we will be the 3rd, definitely by the end of this decade. There is a lot that we see going on with Europe, and again, Ireland as an integral part of that would obviously reap the benefits. Right now, I think the most pressing issues before us is how to stabilize the global economy and do that in a manner in which we enhance our national prospects as well. Clearly, some of what we do with the rest of the world, how do we diversify supply chains, how do we prepare for a digital era, how do we actually start really entering the, I would say, the era of AI and EVs and drones and space. I think the new technologies and all that is associated with it, I think those will be an important part of the conversations with Ireland, just as they are with the European Union as a whole and with all our other major partners. The second area, I think, of possibly greater dealings with Ireland would be on the energy side. There is a big, India is clearly not going to look at a growth pathway which would replicate what others before us have done. Because the carbonization of the world, which that growth has caused, is something which cannot be repeated. So since we have opportunities to look at newer, cleaner, greener technologies, I think that is again an important subject here. And one aspect of it, of course, is nuclear. And Ireland has a particular, I would say, association with nuclear, international nuclear energy regimes. In fact, the first time I came to Ireland, which was almost 20 years ago, was in that very context. Today, there is a whole new world out there with small modular reactors. The requirements for what are anticipated to be big spike in energy requirements because of data centers proliferating. And here we look forward to greater understanding from Ireland about creating more predictable nuclear regimes so that a country like India can make that a bigger part of its energy mix. The digital economy, again, is also, I think, an important factor. It's very sensitive today as to where our data resides, who processes it, who deploys it, and the code words which emerge from that is trust and transparency. So when we look around the world, whether it's at an enterprise level, whether it's at a country level, we look for trusted digital partners, and here Ireland, as a very important digital player, I think holds a lot of promise. I've spoken about supply chains, digital, AI. What it will also call for is a different kind of workforce, a workforce which is much more mobile, also a work environment where the work travels much more than it has done in the past. And you can see that both ways. Today we are seeing much greater skill and talent scouting. In fact, mobility arrangements with many countries which specifically target particular skills and capabilities, but also the growth of global capability centers. Many big corporates are actually setting up centers in India because they would like to do on-site utilization of talents and skills. And again, here there is a lot that can be done. Having said this, I do want to make one broad observation about the state of the world, which is difficult, to put it very mildly, for a variety of reasons. Our attention is normally occupied by, say, conflicts. Conflicts are violent, they're traumatic. It's what you read about in the newspaper, you see on the TV, you look at the phones. But there is a lot that is happening which you do not necessarily read about. Even on conflicts, there are, by one estimate, about 60 conflicts going on in the world. Probably 2 or 3 get on a newspaper or a TV. Possibly the most troubling thing right now is there was an understanding that countries would reach their sustainable development goals by the end of this decade. A year ago, the UN assessed that in terms of basic development indices, health, water, electricity, home, literacy, nutrition, we are about 17% at the end of 4 years in what we should be achieving by the end of the decade. So the state of the world is difficult, more conflict, pandemic after effects, extreme climate events, debt crisis, countries falling behind in their development and basic needs. So what is it we can do more individually, bilaterally, through other institutions? I think these are probably issues that we should be talking about. A particular word about conflicts, because I think it is today a very dominating issue. Where India is concerned, we have always taken the view that differences in this era cannot and should not be settled on the battlefield. That it is important to have dialogue and diplomacy, to find ways of sitting down and talking, however difficult it is. It's not that we have very specific prescriptions here. Obviously, the countries involved or the people involved have to do that. But again, as important voices of peace and as very responsible players, I think again India and Ireland would have thought processes in a very similar direction. Talking about conflict, perhaps a word on countering terrorism would also be appropriate, particularly as a foreign minister of a country which has long been at the receiving end of terrorist efforts. Ireland actually happens to have in the village of Ahakista a commemorative plaque which commemorates the 329, I think, victims of the Air India aircraft Kanishka bombing, which happened off the coast of Ireland. And it's always a reminder that this is a perennial challenge which needs to be dealt with a great deal of resolution and commitment. Overall, let me sum it up this way: that what I do see between our two countries is, we are two very fiercely independent polities. A lot of it derives from our particular history, our own experiences. We've always been cautious about getting involved in bloc politics. We have found our own way of, expressing our positions and our interests in international forums. And today, when there is so much change underway in the world, when there is what we loosely describe as rebalancing, when a lot of the assumptions which held the world order together for the last 8 decades are now coming under some degree of questioning, I think it's important that our two nations continue to remain in touch, to exchange views, to see what it is we can do to stabilize and to ensure that the world runs as well as it should. One other point I would make, and it's a point which resonates with me after having gone to see the Book of Kells and the library at Trinity and the General Post Office, which are very important, I would say, shrines of Irish heritage. We are societies for whom culture, traditions, and heritage have been an exceptional part of building our nationhood. Again, the commonality was that the colonial era attempts were made to erase that. Today, as the world transitions into a different phase, I think it's important for all of us to nurture our cultural attributes, to actually understand their full value, to factor it in as we develop our own identity. And I think there is again learnings that we have from each other, and certainly much of what I saw today has given me food for thought. So let me just conclude on this note that at a very turbulent time in the world, I think foreign policy is more important, not less. I think friendships and understanding are also more valuable, not less. And finding common ground is more essential, not less. So we can do together a lot to strengthen stability, security, and prosperity. Every country is in the search for like-minded partners. I think there is a lot that we in India see in Ireland. That is the belief that has brought me to Dublin. Again, I will be, of course, I had the honor today of being received by President Higgins. Tomorrow I'll be meeting my counterpart in the morning. But I once again thank you, President, for the opportunity to share some thoughts with people who I believe are stakeholders today in this relationship, who will, when I think of myself roughly at your age, these I think formative experiences are really a very powerful memory which will shape your future endeavors. I know each one of you in some way will do something to foster this relationship, so I'm very thankful today for this opportunity to present these views before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Shashankar. So I really think it's amazing that you succinctly went from the shared history of our two countries, the value of our heritage, through to the major social challenges that we all face on the global stage, and then finally to the geopolitical issues and the opportunities for bilateral relationships, multilateral relationships to try and address some of these issues. So thank you so much. We're very honoured to have you here. Good evening to you all. My name is Dolores O'Riordan. I'm the Vice President for Global Engagement at University College Dublin. We're delighted to have you here, particularly to have such a fantastic turnout of our students from India. The Minister has very kindly offered some minutes to answer some questions that you may have. I'm checking the time carefully here.
So
We're probably between we probably have 5 to 7 minutes, and the hands are shooting up everywhere. I'm going to be challenged to keep this. So if you could, there are roaming mics that my colleagues are going to pass around to you. And if you could begin by just giving your name and your affiliation, please. Okay, so we have the first question.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful address. This is Supriya Garagipati. I'm a professor in the School of Politics and International Relations here in Dublin. I mean, India has rapidly grown into an economic powerhouse. Given this backdrop, I would love to hear your views on the lessons it offers to the world in terms of digital innovation and multilateral governance, particularly for emerging economies that are striving to uphold democratic values amidst economic uncertainties.
Thank you. Maybe I could take about 3 questions and make it easier for
Okay,
me.
so on the just next to you there.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Indian Embassy, His Excellency Akhilesh Mishra ji, organizing this wonderful opportunity to engage with the Honorable External Affairs Minister. And it's good to see Ambassador Payman Kheri here as well. A special thank you to Dr. S. Jaishankar sir for your visit to Dublin and for taking the time to meet with Indian diaspora here. So considering the close cultural connections and the growing economic relationship between India and Ireland, and the Indian population here, absolutely. So I, Councillor Supriya Singh, a Dublin City Councillor from Indian origin, would like to ask you if there are any discussions at the government level about establishing direct air connectivity between Dublin and New Delhi. Travel between the two capitals takes over 18 hours due to layover.
No, I don't think. Yeah.
So that has a direct flight of 9.5 hours, a direct route with...
No, I think they all got the pipes.
We are going to enhance the cultural ties and tourism and connectivity.
Sure.
So
Okay.
can the Indian government please engage
No,
with
got
the
it.
airlines to-
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
maybe one more, Aidan. Maybe up towards the back in a sense of fairness. Yeah.
Yes.
thank you so much for talking to us. I'm Arpita Chaudhary. I'm doing my master's in journalism and international affairs at UCD here. And also wanted to mention that I am here on the BB Global Excellence Scholarship. My question to you is that with Ireland's universities attracting a growing number of Indian students in STEM and business courses, how do you think that this can be leveraged for the India-Ireland strategic cooperation and also deepening our collaboration on global issues such as digital governance, climate change, and multilateral diplomacy?
Should I go?
I think so.
Right. The first issue, are there digital lessons from what's happening in India? I believe they are. But rather than lessons, I would say there are experiences, there are technologies, there are practices that we have developed over the last decade especially. And in India today, that has become very critical. It has become very critical because it has, for example, because you're asking me about emerging markets, emerging developing countries, on governance, for example, it can be a real game changer. It can be sometimes something very routine. All of you, for example, would have got passports in some form in the last few years, and reflect on how much harder it was to get passports, how much longer it took, or if you lose a passport, which I wouldn't like you to do, how quickly it is possible to replace it. And all of that is actually happening because we are run today on databases and the ability to access passport information and anything to do with actually enabling somebody to get a passport. But it's not just passports. So if we have a big housing program in India. In the last 10 years, we've built about 40 million houses, basically for people of very low income. We are able to actually target exactly who is eligible for that. Similarly, free or subsidized health access. Today, more than half of India, in some form, has access to health facilities. Even food. That there are 815 million people who every month to better their nutrition are actually eligible and do receive basic carbohydrates and basic nutrients. So what it has done, whether it's the income tax, whether it is the entitlements of people, whether it's information, the digital tools and a digital foundation, what we call a digital public infrastructure, has been extraordinarily effective really today. And once you get into that mindset, there are a whole lot of other add-on technologies as well. So what we are trying to do is to take that approach to other countries and telling them, look, here are the technology providers, this is how we have done it, feel free to talk to them. In some cases, we are even financing pilot projects or actual projects doing that. And our approach to digital itself is very much in terms of the public infrastructure side of it. It's, to that extent, it's somewhat different from the earlier models of the dominant digital players. On the air connectivity, fortunately a few years ago we privatized Air India. So I can honestly tell you that your question should be redirected elsewhere. So having said that, I'll put in a word. Look, I tell you right now what is the biggest problem which all the airlines are facing. We have the two biggest are Indigo and Air India. There are other players as well. India is right now a country where actually the airlines are doing well. They've placed big orders for new aircraft. But unfortunately, the delivery of aircraft has got delayed. So I know, from both the big airlines that they're very, very keen to expand their operations. Certainly, I will speak to them of the attractions and virtues of coming here. and let me see what I can do. For the VV Giri scholarship, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when I said I know among the alumni is a very distinguished President of India, that's exactly who I meant. And in fact, I think President just gave me a biography of VV Giri as well when I came in. Look, very interesting things today are happening in terms of, we spoke about digital. I could take this across a whole set of other domains, the semiconductor domain, the space domain, the drones. I do think today people who have a very solid STEM education, it depends on people again. We are also in a way trying to encourage an innovation spirit, if you would. We are asking young people, and it's this is not just a question of giving a speech or exhorting. I mean, one change, for example, is how do you fund, how do you get banks to give loans to young people who actually don't have a business record, but who have the keenness to start up something. When we look at the future of India today, definitely I think where the government is concerned, we would like to see much greater youth entrepreneurship. We have this very strong belief in the innovative abilities of the youth. There are some sectors where it's already visible. Space is a very good example that if one space, in fact, I would say even drones. I mean, I often, when I look at the startup companies, I mean, these are all people who have really done it in the last 2, 3, 5 years. So certainly India will have more opportunities. As I said, I can also see the world coming to India in a bigger way through global capability centers and joint ventures and so on. But at the same time, we also do believe in a global workplace. I think if there are opportunities elsewhere, look, everybody in some way, wherever they are, whatever they're doing is contributing. And I think it's up to your comfort level. Often there are personal choices involved as well. So I think each one of you will make that decision. And what is important is that you keep that confidence in yourself that today you all have opportunities, you've had an exposure, there are learnings out here, there are possibilities in India, or with partners of India. And I think that's really what you should be exploring.
We're very honoured to have the Minister's time here at UCD, and we don't want to be responsible for him being late for his next engagement. So we'll have to call the speech and the discussion to a close. We do want to have a memory of the occasion, so if we could ask some of the VPIs present if we could stage some photographs with the Minister just before you leave, Minister, if that is okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I was just wondering whether I could get a photograph with everybody. So here's my suggestion, if you don't mind.